live. When are we going? There we go. We're live.
Yeah.
Good morning. This is the New York City Board of Standards and Appeals public review session for January 11th, 10 o'clock, January 11, 2022. No public testimony is permitted during this review session. The first item up is special order calendar, new cases, item number 22, 224-14BZ, 225-14A, 1534 Victory Boulevard, Staten Island.
Okay. There's no service of application or notice of hearing required for extensions of time. This application is for, as I said, an extension of time to complete construction and obtain the certificate of occupancy. The initial demolition of the existing structure has not been completed. So it's actually very premature to be talking about extension of time for C of O. They haven't even completed the demolition, much less start the construction. No explanation, as far as I could see, for why this has taken 4 years to get to this point was provided. So I'd like to understand why it's taking them 4 years to even pull a demo permit. They should provide a detailed timeline for completion of the project. Based on the photos provided, the medical building looks entirely closed, which I don't think was what we talked about when this was first approved. But the statement of fact states that it is currently occupied by 3 different medical practices. So I'd like them to explain, maybe it looks entirely closed. Something happened in the interim because of COVID. It was definitely a functioning operation when we voted on this 4 years ago. Also, I'd also ask, have the plans been filed for the proposed project and for the 2 houses that are to be constructed at the rear, and have the tax lots been reapportioned? I didn't see any sign of any of that work having been done, but maybe I didn't look in the right places. They need to provide photos of the site perimeters relative to the adjoining properties, because the site doesn't look like it's occupied. So my question is it being maintained while they're waiting for construction to begin? And those are my comments. Vice Chair Shonda?
I have no comments, thanks.
Commissioner Ollie Brown?
I echo all of the chair's comments.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Sheta? I
have nothing further to add, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Shabeta?
Nothing further, thank you.
Somebody's computer or something or other, I just heard an echo. So I just want to make sure that people either mute, or maybe it's the slowness of the Zoom, because I heard. Yeah, that's the first time I ever heard that. So anyway, okay, thanks.
Okay, next item is item number 23, 258-15BZ, 2619 East 16th Street, Brooklyn.
There are no service requirements for extensions of time. The owner submitted a brief email stating that financial difficulties prevented start of the project. I note that DOB's website indicates plan approval in 2018. Please provide a copy of the DOB approved drawings, and provide a construction timeline. There may be an error in the 2017 resolution that I'd like our council to look at. There are 4 asterisks associated with the parking study paragraph. So if our council could take a look at that, it's the one that talks about the hours of peak demand and so on. And it says there will be asterisk, it's hard to say 4 times fast, 4 spaces. And I usually think of an asterisk as something that's an alert that you're missing some data. So that should be fixed, whatever the answer is. This is the case where the proposed building works in tandem with another medical practice in the area as the radiation and management practice. I'm mentioning that because of comments for a later hearing, which refers to this particular site. And I just want to say that this is one of the locations that's referred to in a later hearing today. Please verify that this, I'd like to know also that this tandem relationship is still the case. In other words, that this practice would be in association with the one that's basically down the street as the radiology department, because the parking study relied on that fact. And so it should still be the case. They should provide photos of the current perimeter site conditions. Again, I just want to verify the site's being maintained while we're waiting for construction to begin. And those are my comments. Vice Chair Shanda.
Additional
You-
comments.
Sorry,
Sorry,
say it again.
no, so no additional comments. Also, because there's been a change in ownership, I just had the similar question with regards to the relationship with the other operation.
Okay. Commissioner Ali Brown.
No additional comments.
Okay. Commissioner Sheta.
Thank you, Chair. Two things. I was looking at the resolution, the 2017 one, and it referenced plans that were received. It says, give me 1 second. Yeah, it says plans received July 7th of 2017. However, when I looked at the plans that were approved and marked received back in 2017, I saw that they were received July 11, not 7. I just wanted to, like, yeah, if we need to, I'm not sure if we need to take any action here. But other than that, I have no other comments.
Okay, so thank you. That's two things for council to look at, that it's the right plan reference and those asterisks.
Okay, thank you.
And Commissioner Shabeta.
I have no further comments on this.
Thank-
Appeals calendar, continued hearing items, item number 24, 2019-276A, 15 Stewart Lane, Queens.
Sorry, almost there. Okay. We finally have, as of December 9th, DEP sign off.
Yeah.
This review has been oddly complicated. I can't really figure out why, given that this is an enlargement of an existing house in the bed of a map street, and DEP was not happy with it for some reason, which someday maybe we'll understand. And
No,
so-
they said they couldn't do something with the drainage, and then I demanded a meeting. The
Yeah.
applicant and I kept demanding a meeting, and it was not forthcoming. Then when we demanded the meeting and they sent the meeting, then they retracted their objection. And then
Okay,
apparently there was another review done, and then the new letter forth came.
so the review probably said, oh, there's a house here already, oh.
Yeah, the applicant kept saying, there's a house here already. Like, what am I doing? What am I not giving you? What am I not
Right,
saying
right.
to you to whatever?
Exactly. So kind of apologies to the owner for delays, and we did the best we could to move it along. Thank you, Tony.
No, so did
there
the
was-
applicants.
Yeah,
it was
no,
just-
I know, but in terms of, I know that the applicant knows what the applicant did, but from our side, we did what we could do to move it along too, and there's only so far we can go on.
Yep.
So DOT had requested in February of last year a survey, which must be in the folder. I just want to make sure that was submitted to DOT, because we don't have a final DOT just asked for the survey. It doesn't sound like they weren't signing off. It's just give us the survey. Now we have that beautifully plotted easement diagram, which easement survey, really beautifully plotted. It should be the model. If anybody asks, what do you mean by plotting an easement? We mean this. Beautiful.
So we'll add that to our samples.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know why people wouldn't understand what the plot of an easement is, but this makes it simple. It looks like this. And also the revised restrictive declaration is fine. And to which a notice to cure to the easement owner has been added, which is what I had requested at the last hearing. There is a typo, though, that I'd like them to correct before they execute and record. The word adjacent easement area is a defined term, but it isn't properly referred to in the first declaration, paragraph 1A. They leave out the word, I think, easement. No, they leave out the word area. Also, they need to add the copy of the survey that was submitted on December 22nd that shows the easement area, the one that I'm referring to. That because it's an easement restrictive declaration, it should have the easement survey as the exhibit, right? And then they need to record the restrictive deck before the issuance of the resolution, and so on. Okay, those were my comments. So this is really ready to close after all this time. Okay, Vice Chair Shanda.
You're muted.
Sorry. Oops.
You
I
lost
don't
your
know what's
picture.
happening. I have no additional comments. I'm satisfied. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Commissioner Otley Brown.
I have no comments.
Okay, Commissioner Sheta
Nothing further from me. Thank you.
and Commissioner Shabeta.
Nothing further. I'm satisfied.
Thank you.
Sorry. Zoning calendar, continued hearing items, item number 25, 2019, 192 BZ, 16 Harrison Place, Brooklyn.
Sorry. Scrolling. I'll let you know when I'm there. Okay. So this is the 5th hearing on this case. And at the last and 4th hearing, we said this would be the last, and that the only reason for continuing the hearing to the 5th was belief, actual naive belief, as it turns out, that the applicant would listen to our instructions and in tandem with that, complete the responses to the seeker questions that were submitted by DEP. We gave the applicant 11 weeks to listen to the commissioner's comments and properly respond. We directed the applicants to reduce the size of the ask by reducing the number of floors, hence the floor area, not the height of the building, to be more in line with the neighbors so as not to be giving a windfall to this applicant, and to improve the financial analysis by removing duplicate costs and using a standardized costing system to generate project hard and soft costs, the Marshall and Swift system. Instead, the applicant elected to do none of those things. So no revised project proposal. It's exact same project as was submitted to us 5 hearings ago, or well before that. Hence, there was no lesser, that is minimum variance proposal provided. So I'm going to leave it.
Could I just,
Yeah,
I just wanted to interject. They did give us under separate heading, a lesser variance 3-story residential project. Did you see that?
no, what? No.
Yeah, it's a 1-pager that they just slipped in by itself with like no cover letter. Just, it's a financial 1-pager that basically says lesser variance 3-story residential doesn't work. And it shows like the, soft cost, blah, 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 income, and when you divide the income by the cap rate, it doesn't work.
I see.
Of course, it would work if they didn't have the MTA costs, but that's another thing. They did provide that, only to say it did not work.
Okay.
But
All right.
they didn't provide drawings, right?
No,
only that one
no
sheet.
drawings, nothing.
Okay,
It's just
so,
an argument.
so before I need to interrupt you or anything, I was actually going to be handing it first to Commissioner Otley Brown to talk about, and then to Commissioner Sheta to talk about. Then we'll go to the other commissioners, and then we'll circle back to me so I can do a summary, which I'm not going to do until the 2 of you speak. So Commissioner Otley Brown, take it.
Okay, so they did some of what we asked, and they did it in a way that it would show that it would not work. The financials were a massive bait and switch game in which we asked for something and they changed it, not as much as we would have wanted it changed. And then they changed other assumptions to kind of balance out their reductions. And that is a classic move by this financial expert, and it's very frustrating. So I had been asking all along for a one-story warehouse as of right, because I know in my heart it works. And I know just from doing some marking on a page that it works as well. They didn't give me the one-story warehouse. They gave me a one-story plus cellar warehouse and then told me it doesn't work. Of course it doesn't work, because you're putting in a cellar, which means that you're putting in an elevator and 2 stair cores, taking up precious space, number one, which makes it less attractive because it is on a small site, and also drives the costs up because the elevator alone is like $240,000. So they did what I asked, but I did it in such a way so that it would show that it didn't work. When in reality, if you just have a one-story warehouse, it works. Therefore, we don't need to go any further. But just to sum up the rest of the things, we asked them to reduce their construction costs. They reduced them some, but they still had many costs included. But in order to counterbalance the reduction we asked for, all of a sudden they found that they're adjacent to the train tunnel and they threw back in $245,000 of MTA monitoring costs that incidentally you're not going to incur if you have no cellar. Need I say more? And also because we had argued with them that we felt they were using the wrong building class and the wrong condition, they corrected the building class and the condition that they used in Marshall and Swift, but they used that as their argument to reduce their rents across the board, saying, well, now that we're not using the top end construction costs in the top quality fireproof steel building, the office rents come down, the retail rents stay the same, and the apartment rents come down precipitously. And so therefore, the project doesn't work. But I just have one thing to say about that. When people are looking for apartments and looking for space, I could tell you, and I know this for a fact, I don't know one person who walks into an apartment and says, is this a class 1A structural steel building that's completely fireproof from roof down to cellar? Because if it is, I'll pay $5,000 a month for my 2-bedroom. Oh no, it's just a class 3 brick. Oh no, in that case, I'm going to pay only $3,000. That's not how people look and lease spaces. They lease spaces on the visuals as well as what the rent is. And they balance it in their brain and determine whether or not it's worth it. But they're not basing it on the Marshall and Swift categories that are chosen for valuation. So that argument, to me, I don't accept that. Let's see. They also, as I had said before, they put in at the last minute, I think, a lesser variance 3-story residential that they say does not work because the delta between the cost and value is $184,000. But if they don't have those MTA costs in there, guess what? It works. Needless to say, all of these changes has reduced their credibility. And frankly, I don't know which end is up. So I definitely cannot support this project in any form because I don't think they make any of the findings, let alone the very important B and E findings.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and Commissioner Sheta?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to start with saying that I did ask for the documents that were approved by MTA. If you look at the financials, there is a cover letter coming from MTA, an approval letter. And in that approval letter, it lists down structural and foundation drawings that supposedly MTA stamp approved. I did ask for these drawings to be submitted early last week. I got them right after Tony called the case.
Oh,
I got them from, they weren't even sent to submit. I got them from Darren, the project manager.
Mhm.
And the surprise is I didn't get the approved drawings actually. I got the approval letter. I got the drawings, but they are not stamped approved. I'm not sure if this is the tradition at the MTA now, but I doubt that. But apart from this, I just wanted to let the board know. Apart from this, this project is kind of a mess. We shouldn't be begging applicants to do what need to move their cases forward. We should give them a chance once, twice, probably at most 3 times. And then we shouldn't care about the applicants and their clients more than they care about themselves. We should close and vote. And this is my position in this case. We should close and just vote today, or I know that we cannot vote today, but we should get rid of this case. Enough is enough. And I'm really upset. I thought this game has stopped when you like shoot down one of the cost items and say this is exaggerated. And back in the day, 4 years ago, I used to, like, if I kill 100,000 on a cost item, they would show up on another cost item. I thought this is gone. This era stopped, but it sounds like it didn't. In this very submission from this very applicant, we all of a sudden 245,000 MTA monitoring cost. And you know what? The first question is why you didn't show this up from the beginning, and probably the answer is because we like submitted, after we submitted this application, we submitted to MTA, they looked at the stuff and they issued the approval. But the approval, if you look at the financials, the approval letter came back in August, meaning that it was before the October hearing. And when I thought about this, the only explanation for that is before the October hearing, they didn't need to factor in this 245 grand, which is should be significantly less than that, and I will explain why. They didn't need to factor in the MTA stuff, so they were fine with it. But now, after that, like the debate during the October hearing, now let's factor in the MTA. But the MTA is a tiny portion. Oh, let's just give it, let's beef it up. Let's make it from probably 20 grand to 245. Yes, and it's real. If you look at the financials, and I'm gonna share my screen in a moment. This is the argument that the construction cost estimator submitted, and I believe it should be a penalty for this kind of behavior. Really, this is upsetting. That monitoring fees is 7.5 grand. Monitoring monthly is 3 months times almost 10,000. This is 30,000, but this is not enough yet. Oh, MTA required engineer, 8 hours a day, 220 per hour. So this is like almost 1,700 a day times 90 days. It sounds like it's not just 3 months, but you know what? It's a super month because they're gonna work every single day of the 3 months period. And then, oh, let's add some spices here. 50 grand for transient insurance. So if you look at this, the total of that is almost $250,000. But this is not true. The truth is, and it's in their own submission. The truth is, if you look at the cost schedule, they went to, like everybody else, they went to a consultant. They told them that we submitted to MTA, we got drawings approved, give us a budget. So that Big Apple, that one of the consultants in the city, he gave him first a construction schedule, a fees schedule. And he said for a principal engineer, the rate is $220 per hour for a principal engineer. This is a guy who's very close to the CEO of that company, Big Apple. This is a guy at the very top. And for a technician, it's $75 per hour. So Mr. Cost Estimator elected to pick the 220. But if you look at the what is the breakdown for the cost from Big Apple, you're gonna come to the truth of the $245,000 that were claimed to be monitoring cost. This is a breakdown task by task by the person or the entity who's gonna do the monitoring and look at it on the go. First of all, excavation period. MTA usually asks for monitoring during excavation, not even during the foundation construction. Once you're done with the excavation, they got peace of mind. You're almost done. So the consultant, their consultant, if you look at this line here, it says two things. Number one, the monitoring will be done by a field technician. And it says here, field technician for MTA per day. And per day is 8 times 75. That comes to 385, or this is whatever the rate is, 385 a day. This compares to almost 1,700 for the construction cost estimator. And the construction period, the excavation period, is 20 days. It's not 90 days. It's not for almost 5 times the excavation period. And this comes to about almost 8,000. And if you add up some other like cost, like the preparation of the monitoring plan, the installation of the monitoring equipment, and you add this up, this comes down to less than 20 grand. So the total for the monitoring job is not 245. It's just less than 20 grand. And the 50 grand, by the way, and that reminds me with one of the cases that I looked at back in 2018, when somebody claimed that he's gonna pay MTA 50 grand to look at his drawings. And we ended up getting his engineer on the stage testifying that 50 grand is not 50 grand. It's actually $250. And same thing here for the insurance. MTA asked for insurance policy. Probably, I don't recall the amount exactly of the policy, but I believe it was on the order of $1 million or $2 million. If you imagine that you have a house that worth $1 million or $2 million, and you want to insure this, the insurance is not for a month. The insurance is not going to be a 50 grand. The insurance probably could be 1,000. It could be 500, something like that, but not 50 grand for a period of 20 days. So the conclusion is this MTA story is, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. The proposed construction is close to the MTA. Drawings were submitted to MTA, they reviewed them. But at the end of the day, they issued a letter to allow construction to go with the condition that they gotta perform monitoring. And the monitoring cost per their consultant, not per me, it comes down to less than 20 grand. Add to this probably 2,000 for the insurance policy. The maximum of this is $20,000 to $25,000. If you plug out the 245,000 of the equation from the financials, this project need to be significantly reduced. And honestly, I am not willing to grant anything on this side, because I believe that, like Commissioner Brown said, that one-story warehouse is feasible. And second, granting what the applicant is currently asking for, I believe it's a craziness. Why would we grant a ground +3 residential use waiver plus bulk waiver while we have adjacent houses that have significantly less floor area? That's not fair. And I don't want to grant something that's not fair here. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. Now, having heard that, now I go to the other commissioners, Vice Chair Shanda.
I'm sorry, I'm having a little bit of a computer moment. Can
You can-
Commissioner
okay.
Shibata go
Yeah,
ahead
yeah.
and I'll go
Go ahead.
last?
Commissioner Shibata?
One moment. Thank you, Chair. So I heard the comments of Commissioner Otley Brown and Commissioner Sheta, and I do value them. I do want to just want to add one small comment to something that Commissioner Sheta said, and that's with regard to insurance of a site. There is a difference between insuring a home that's not under any outside stressors and insuring a working site. So while I think he dug up some really interesting stuff with regard to what Big Apple cited and what they're claiming in their cost estimate, I think perhaps the insurance portion of it, I'm not as skeptical of.
I think, just to clarify, I think that insurance is related to a specific task, not related to the entire construction job, which is figured into the cost estimates elsewhere.
Sure, and what I'm saying is you insure $1 million for $1 million on something that is static, and you're insuring $1 million on something that is in action. You're going to have two very different valuations on what that insurance costs.
Right.
That's true.
But-
That's true.
True. Yeah, but I don't want to get into a whole insurance discussion.
Absolutely.
Insurance is part of general conditions in the entire construction package. And then there may be insurance that's specific to the MTA related stuff. So yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Sheta, just to.
Yeah, and the numbers, I just want to mention this very quickly. The numbers I indicated during my testimony is not based on how much I pay for my house. That just was an example for illustration. But I pay for my house about $100 a month. But for a project, that numbers I indicated for the insurance of such kind of project, I based that on similar projects, probably bigger projects that I designed, and I submitted drawings to MTA along with the insurance certificate. And I had my clients back then shop for insurance, and the amount that's paid for, I recall one of the projects that excavation continued for like 3 months. That was in Brooklyn. That was like immediately adjacent to one of the elevated bridges, which is more vulnerable to like impact from excavation. The amount was significantly less for 3 months for a much bigger project than what is indicated. Probably it was a fraction of that.
No,
So I didn't mean to compare it to a house.
Sure, that's very valuable information. Thank you, Commissioner. I don't have any further comments on that.
Okay. Okay. Vice Chair Shanda, are you back?
Yeah.
or-
Yeah,
Okay.
I am.
Go ahead.
So, given the long history of it, I wanted to refamiliarize with the project itself. So I went back and looked through all the documents and tried to understand why this case is before us. And so I started with what typically we have directed the applicants and what we have seen and what this case is about. So first of all, this is a site that is 25 foot wide by 88 foot long. And we have seen sites of this size, and maybe they're 100 foot long in this neighborhood, and where we have granted variance for use in this case. So I think based on my earlier comments from prior reviews, I did find the hardship justifiable. And going through the documents again, I do find the hardship justifiable here also, because it's 25 foot wide by 88 foot deep and in a fringe of an area which is changing from manufacturing or warehousing to residential and commercial. With that, I looked through the commercial developments that's been happening in the area and some new construction, commercial related construction that has happened in the area recently, and some that we did grant. The one that we granted has barely taken off the ground, so it's not a good indicator of what the market dominance is. The other one, which is already built.
Sorry, if you know what one took You're referring
That's
to
the Grattan. That's the Grattan one.
58 Grattan.
Yeah, it is. It has just about the permit for a scaffolding around the site, I guess, to start the demolition, but nothing more than that. The other building, which is across the on the other side of the block, it's I thought I had it. This is 18. Grattan. It is, this is based on my Google search and everything. This building, it's a brand new building with, it's a bigger building, wider building. It has off-street parking spaces. It has a lot of vacant office spaces throughout the building and vacant retail spaces that's been lying vacant for more than 2 years. The office sizes in this building, they vary from 870 square foot to 1800 square foot. And they've been on the market for the last 3 years. So I look at that. I look at our 58 Grattan Street project, which has not started. No plans have been submitted to DOB. Based on the current market condition in the area, viability of an additional office building or a warehouse in a lot that can have at most of an office size maximum is biggest one would be 2,000, possibly if you have an entire floor of it on 2 floors maximum, is not at all realistic that it will do well in the market. So while numerically, theoretically, all of this would work, reality-wise, I'm not convinced it would work. So I do believe there is a hardship, and a use variance is very, very justifiable, especially on this block front. You have a lot of residential buildings. So I do believe the uniqueness of the hardship is valid, and the applicant's ask is very valid. The question becomes how much of the ask, and I looked at the comps, and it was. In terms of the comps that was provided. And what I have to say, I wish the applicant initially had looked at the comps and looked at the interiors. So I absolutely agree that when I, as a potential renter, when I'm going to look at an apartment, I have no way of knowing what kind of classification it is. I am going to go by how it looks, what is the finish, and how is it oriented? Can I fit my bed in there? Can I have this? Can I have? That's how I'm looking at it. And when I looked at the comps that were initially reviewed, but now I looked at the interior photos of it, and I was like, absolutely. If I'm going to compare this building, which is going to have an average finish, to compare to the ones that have really, they might be in a not so attractive looking building from an exterior, but in an interior, they have amazing wood finish construction, some are very classic, some are very, very modern looking. I am going to say, I don't think I want to pay that much rent for an average looking apartment. I want to have this, unless I'm on a shoestring budget and I don't care. I'm like, okay, fine, I'll go for that. So yes, the comps have been adjusted based on the interior finish. And I think going forward, the applicants, when they are doing the financials, they should be very cognizant of it and factor that in early on. Be that as it may, I will accept this comparison, the comp adjustment that has been made for the retail office spaces and for the retail residential buildings based on the interiors. So it seemed fair to me in terms of the adjustments that's been made, and I'm okay with that. With regards to the MTA, I looked at the MTA soft cost, and the MTA soft cost is $245,000. Now, if I subtract that from all the development scenarios that have been submitted, and I want to go back. When we ask for applicants to do a straightforward warehouse building on a narrow lot, oftentimes we have seen a building with a cellar, though maybe not with an elevator, but with a staircase so that you have an extra storage space. You can that way use the ground floor for a little bit more for the trucks to pull in or whatever for other things. So I didn't think it was out of the ordinary for them to provide a cellar, with or without the cellar. The fact of the matter is, this is not an extraordinary even if it is numerically viable, it is realistically not viable. So I just want to restate that. So when you subtract $245,000 from the soft construction cost and you look at the project value, all these projects are still suffering, and so does the proposed project. So I really don't see the MTA soft cost add-on as a big to-do, and I would be very satisfied with this application as it's proceeding, because in terms of the neighborhood context, the build height is no different from what is already there, and I though wish the applicant would improve their statement of facts, put in and findings, and put in more information and not rely just on the supporting documents. But other than that, I'm very satisfied with this application. I'm in the minority, I know that. Thanks.
I think we have, is it 18 Grattan or 58 Grattan that you were saying isn't constructed? Apparently it might
58
be
Grattan is the one we had granted the variance on recently that I remember I was part of, and 18 Grattan is the other tall building that is, I think, of 5, so it's behind, like diagonally across from the subject side. If you go to officespace.com website, there you will get the information about about 18 Grattan Street.
But apparently 58 Grattan is used in the comps, no? So it must be built. How can
I
we
don't
use it in
know,
the comps?
but when I look through the DOB thing, there is nothing has been pulled on it except that, I mean, I did see something on the 58
Grattan is a comp, just so you know. It's an office comp, and there are photos of a completed office space.
So they may have the address wrong, but
yeah, maybe it's filed under 56 Grattan, which was the partner building. But just so you know, it appears complete by the comps unless they have fabricated that comp, which I doubt it.
right, it wouldn't service them. So,
Right.
So we have a little conflict in facts, but okay, understood. So, okay, and I see Commissioner Shetta's hand up, and then I want to do a summary. Commissioner Shetta, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm confused. I'm like the newest on this board, maybe not the newest, but I would claim that I'm the least with zoning experience. I'm an engineer. I'm not a planner, but my understanding is that hardship, uniqueness, could be judged with lot dimensions, lot shape, lot adjacency, but hardship is judged by numbers. Hardship is judged based on costs, and this is the function of the construction cost estimator. First, we check A, which is uniqueness, and then we ask them to prepare cost estimates, and based on that, you might have unique site, but it doesn't have a hardship. And I'm not saying this site is not unique, but I can see if numbers are not flying, and I explain why. If you look at this chart here, and this is that last financial submissions, I'm not sure if you see it.
Yes.
But if you look at the option for the warehouse, if they do what Commissioner Brown indicated, if they eliminate the seller, that project, pay the cost they submitted, pay the applicant, not us, it's short by about 400,000. Take off the 245 for the MTA for 2 reasons. Number one, because it's significantly exaggerated. And number 2, because when you eliminate the seller, this 1-story warehouse is going to be built on grade beams. The impact on the tunnel is almost gone because you eliminate deep excavation, you eliminate large footings, you eliminate the foundation system, almost, you do that. So if you factor out, if you block out the 245,000 for the MTA, add to that the elevator, plus the cost for the seller. I believe it's very crystal clear that a one-story warehouse is not suffering. So I just want to be careful here. I believe we should move on this project. Enough
Yeah.
is enough. Thank you.
Okay, I see Commissioner Otley Brown's hand up, and then I would like to make some summary comments. Okay, go ahead.
I just want to say, I feel it's problematic when two commissioners are laying out an argument based on facts and based on things that they've read, that they're analyzing, and then whatever they're saying, which is well thought out, is then cast a shadow of doubt on by somebody when they just say, numbers may not be feasible, but I feel it isn't feasible. You know, numbers show it's feasible. Well, we have nothing to go on here but numbers and facts. Opinions of whether or not something's feasible don't count unless they're backed up by numbers and facts. You know, and we're not just looking at this lightly. Commissioner Shetta and I spent hours reviewing the financials and the plans and all of the assorted documents. And we looked at an MTA submission that was incomplete and thrown in at the last minute, and then looked through it and found that we couldn't even see how they got to $245,000 because their own Apple contract was a fraction of that amount. So for our information to be dismissed, not on facts, but on opinion, to me is problematic. And so I just felt I had to speak. It's one thing to say, oh, Commissioner Otley Brown or Commissioner Shetta, you missed a whole submission or you missed these 5 pages. But to say, well, you're saying you looked at the numbers and it does, and the as of right works, but I have a feeling that it wouldn't work. I don't know where we go with it, with a statement like that.
Okay.
All it does is it casts aspersions on our judgment, and I find that problematic.
Thank you. I just want to add something to this. When I reviewed this last submission and saw that it really, the hearing before, I held it open because we had open seeker. And I really, really believed that the applicant would listen to us, reduce the scope of the waiver by reducing the height of the floor area of the building by 1 floor to be equivalent to the neighbor, revise the financials to follow the instructions that were given, and that there wouldn't be any, as it's the term we call whack-a-mole anymore, because we were at the last hearing. We said, this is the last one. And instead, none of that was done. And so what I did was I went back and not just reviewed my notes and reviewed the documents. I listened to the hours and hours and hours of testimony on this case. So I just want to say that on each of the hearings, our review session was an average of 45 minutes to an hour just for this case, just like it is now. And then we went to the hearing, and the hearing with the applicant was 45 minutes to an hour, like it's probably going to be coming up, but we're probably not going to let it. And so if the applicant didn't get the instruction each time to fix the material so that the facts supported the application, then I no longer know what to do, because it's not like people are saying there's no A. They're saying the B is still not substantiated by the facts on the field. B, I mean, everything has to add up so that we have this on every case. If it doesn't add up to give you a negative return, and the proposal doesn't add up to give you the positive return, then we don't have a case. There are cases, we just dismissed 2 cases where there was 0 chance, right? We told them, sorry, this is not a variance case. In this case, we said, you have an A. help us get to what the A should get you, right? And they never helped us. They stood firm to the original application, and I don't understand that. All we said was, you're asking for too much. We see that, I mean, for instance, it got worse and worse because, as we know from these really long hearings, the longer it drags on, the more the experts find, and I would say, when I say experts, I mean the engineering and the financial experts find, to undermine the claims at the beginning that are made at the beginning. If you finish it, if you do it in 2 hearings, there isn't time to discover all the defects, frankly. And I mean, or to make more and more mistakes that get discovered, or to play what we call a sort of the financial engineering games. And the case could have been done. It could have been done after the 2nd hearing. And I think at the last hearing, when I listened to the video, the comments were, I don't understand. They didn't give us anything that we wanted. We thought they were going to come back with a smaller project. They didn't come back with a smaller project. How are we still looking at the same drawings we looked at in April? I don't understand. So that's where I am on this. And then, so I am not saying you don't have an A, but I'm saying the B isn't established for the proposal. And it's therefore, which means it's not the minimum variance. And it doesn't matter what we've done on other sites in the past. Each case has to present its facts, and this case didn't present the facts. So, and I had just as many loosey-goosey feelings about the success of viable office spaces, because I used to have my own architecture office. I operated in the ground floor of a tenement. The space was 700 square feet, perfect. I had 11 architects working in there. So it's possible to do great work in tiny spaces. And so I disagree that an 815 square foot office or whatever. But by the way, I looked at also when we asked for an alternate minimum variance, we asked for instead a bulk waiver only. And we said, replicate Grattan Street. And instead of replicating Grattan Street, where we told them over and over and over again, I heard myself say it over and over and over again, go for a rear yard waiver so you build full or almost full to the lot lines. Instead, what did they submit? A ground floor built full and the upper floors pulled back 20 feet. So they, of course, didn't have an adequate income because they were building not Grattan Street. So every single direction that we gave them, they rejected. That's how you lose a case. And that's how I also say no B, no E, and you have an A, come back some other time with another team. I don't know what to say. So Commissioner Scietta, please let's wrap this up really quickly.
Yeah, I will. I just want to let the board know that, like I said, not to say that we missed something we didn't look at. I did look at, these are the excavation support drawings. I did look at them. Probably they don't want to build to the lot line because they don't want to do any SOE. As you can see here, this entire site and 50% of the other side has no excavation support. Probably that's why they save money, and in the meantime, they get something with the right, but they don't give something with the left. They get something with the left as well. So that's why. And I also looked at the foundation drawings and the structural drawings. And again, these came in at almost 10:20 today. So we tried to give them like that whatever attention they deserve. Whatever they submitted, we looked at it. And I don't see any reason why we should keep this case on the calendar any other minute.
So we're going to close this case, but Commissioner Scietta?
I did share your statements, Chair. My only concern is punishing the owner for the faults of the applicant team.
That's all we have.
I understand. So while while I would agree to close, I would ask that we can keep the record open so they can submit something.
No. I just have to tell you how many hours people spent reviewing this. Again, there were 8 hours of hearings on this, 8 hours of hearings alone. How much time do you think you need to speak about a case if you're spending an hour, 2 hours each hearing speaking about the case, right? You need to prepare hours and hours and hours. I don't know if you hear what Commissioner Otley Brown and Commissioner Sheta say they do. They spend a minimum of 5 hours reviewing this case.
I certainly did. I certainly value their
There's
expertise.
no more reason to submit. Nothing. We close. And if the owner wants to come back with a different team, that's the owner's choice. But we can't keep going on and on and on like this. I fell for it already 2 times. I'm not falling for it again. I really feel like we were duped into this. And by the way, the very, very first hearing was, let's not make this a hearing that goes on for 6 hearings. Right. So we didn't go, and the applicant's counsel said, no, I don't want it to be a 6 hearing case either. So instead it's a 5 hearing case, but it actually would be 6 because we vote. Right.
I just want to say I do have the utmost respect for Commissioner Otley Brown's experience and their hard work, and also Commissioner Sheta's deep dive into the engineering. I have nothing but respect for their professionality.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay. All right, Vice Chair Shanda, and then I was going to do a summary, but now I'm not.
No, you may do the summary. Since a lot of these statements were based on my comments, I think I just owe one clarification. And as I echo what Commissioner Shabeta said, is that I do respect everything that has been voiced by all the commissioners, and I do factor those into my decision, but I am also entitled to my opinion based on my review and fact analysis. So I do look at the fact patterns in the analysis. At the same time, I also look at the reality of what is happening in that neighborhood. So with those two factored in, I came to my conclusion. So no disrespect to my fellow commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So the reason I wanted to do a summary is to put in perspective what we said at the hearings and review sessions and what we expected and what we didn't get, right? At the first hearing, we questioned the site's uniqueness and the uniqueness study, that we needed clearer, commonly held ownership study. We noted the very poor financial analyses with many errors, which, by the way, Commissioner Otley Brown finally said, I can't review this anymore. It's just such a mess. The analysis didn't support the uniqueness claim. There were improperly selected comparables and cost estimates. We asked whether the as of right use was something that someone would actually build because of the low value given to the rentals, and whether the as of right is unnecessarily shaped to become unreasonably costly. We questioned why the proposed is a long, narrow railroad flats instead of front to back units, and the overly narrow 17-foot wide cellar that's caused by the step footing, and the appropriateness of the proposed use on the block. We actually had a long discussion about whether this fits within neighborhood character, and suggested maybe only a bulk waiver, including a rear yard waiver to be similar to the Grattan Street variance, would be viable. That was on hearing 1. At the second hearing, the uniqueness study was improved, and we said, thank you, the uniqueness study is good, but the applicant ignored the instruction from the first hearing to look at an as of right with a floor area and rear yard waiver. We got nothing on that. There was discussion that artist lofts are desirable and exist on the same block. So there is market demand, because that was pushback from the applicant that artist lofts are not desirable. Because the proposed had not changed, commissioners were remained skeptical about high construction costs and the financial analysis. There was a new analyst brought in. They also questioned the scope of the waiver and appropriateness of residential use on a heavily commercial block. And this is an unusually heavily commercial block with a big storage facility right opposite. The instructions were direct: remove the use waiver and only request FAR and rear yard waivers for an as of right use. That was an instruction again. The instruction was to use Marshall and Swift to cost estimate that includes soft costs. And the instruction was, don't inject anything else into the Marshall and Swift analysis. Commissioner Ollie Brown said that the as of right will work with the Marshall and Swift numbers, so we had an issue there. But we left this open to return as bulk waiver only because we believed there was an A. So we wanted to leave it open that they would be able to support the as of right, the proposed reduced waivers with the numbers. At the third hearing, an as of right that didn't include, as I mentioned before, a rear yard waiver was provided. So the 4 plates were less efficient than they might have been and less floor area. Discussions continued about the as of right scenarios and the misuse actually of Marshall and Swift with respect to selection of building class and typology, which results in overly high construction costs that don't support the B finding still. At that hearing, the Marshall and Swift discussions were long and detailed. This was an hour of review and an hour of hearing, including a discussion about soft costs, but it was clear that the B finding had not been met based on those analyses. I think that the applicant may have focused only on the mechanism of the Marshall and Swift cost estimator and not the fact that the B finding had still not been met. Instead of just talking about, like some applicants say, we just need to complete the record or paper the record. No, you hadn't persuaded on the B finding. And the Marshall and Swift analysis was intended to just come down to the basic facts. How much does this cost based on a really standard construction cost estimator? And it's like a program or online construction cost estimator. At the last and the fourth hearing, discussions were the same about the Marshall and Swift costs and the overreach on the scope of the ask, and no response was given about why there is a full cellar in the as of right, but a step footing cellar in the proposed, which was questioned. And it wasn't clear at all why there was the same pushback at the fourth hearing as at the prior hearings concerning the costing mechanisms, which included double counting soft costs. The applicant was directed to provide the simplest as of right possible. That was the direction at the last hearing. Commissioners closed by directing the applicant to follow the instructions and to not push back. Instructions were to use class 2C, if I got that one right, I may have misunderstood, in the program, in the Marshall and Swift program, to result in something around $237 a square foot. But, and the last comment was there have been too many hearings on this. Throughout the course of the 5 hearings, the proposed plans, as I say, were never modified to reduce the scope of the ask. And I have to finalize, the case is for the applicant to make. The board gave many directions which applicant elected not to follow. And as I said, although there may be an A, applicant repeatedly failed to show that the A presents a financial hardship and that the requested waivers are the minimum variance necessary, hence no B or E findings have been made. And I still question the neighborhood character. I'm not persuaded on that one either. So, okay. So I think we've talked like we did before, not quite 45 minutes on this one. I don't know why not. It felt like 45 minutes. Okay, so let's move on. Thank you, everyone. I know this is an enormous amount of work and an extremely frustrating application. And I hope the owner hears this, because if the owner is not the one responsible for the pushback, his team is, his or her team is, and that should be a little discussion amongst themselves. Okay. All right, let's move on.
Item number 26, 2019-278 BZ, 9201 Fifth Avenue, Brooklyn.
And ironically, same applicant. Or is it ironic?
No.
It's not ironic. I hope this applicant learns from the comments of the last hearing and the comments that I'm about to deliver on this one. This case was last heard over a year ago, with 3 adjournments since and a dismissal warning letter that was sent out on October 21st that required of last year, that required a complete submission. The required parking study discussed over a year ago has still not been submitted. Instead, we received a letter arguing that no such study is required. This is not for the applicant to determine. And in fact, all 4 of the cases that were cited by the applicant and which were submitted to us as a way of proving something or other, show that parking studies were submitted on all 4 of those applications. But by the way, they're submitted on all of the applications. That's what the board does. Hence, the submission was incomplete. And therefore, I would like to close this case if it's required to be closed, because, and that's a question to council and Carlo and Tony. The case has been sitting around long enough, and I would like to dismiss this case for lack of prosecution. And I would love to dismiss it now, but I don't know if we're allowed to close and dismiss.
I think you should wait for the hearing, no? Council?
Yeah. May have to wait for the hearing, then close, maybe vote. So our council can weigh in on that. They're probably discussing it right now. So, okay. All right, let's move on to the next one. Yeah, I don't think there's anything to discuss because there was nothing submitted. So there's nothing to discuss.
Right, we reached out to the applicant, Jella and I, and they said they were submitting some oral arguments and written argument, I'm sorry, not oral.
Right. For
Written
why
arguments, right, why we should not dismiss this or what have you.
No, not why we shouldn't dismiss it. It was why we shouldn't do what we were asked to do.
I'm sorry, yes, to submit the documentation, yes. I
Yeah.
stand corrected.
Vice Chair, go ahead.
Can I just add one more thing to it?
Yes.
I think, I don't know why the applicant submitted those 4 cases, because all those 4 cases, as you pointed out, do refer to a parking study. And also it included, because the applicant tried to make the argument that it's what DOB waives is up to DOB, and that's not for us to review. The 4 cases that were cited also very specifically had a language in the resolution, which says that BSA takes no position about the additional parking waiver through ZR 36-231. So what, it did not, I'm not sure what was the intent of pointing us in that direction, but I would like, as an academic exercise, to understand how ZR 36-321 is being applied, and would be helpful to find out if the listed projects provided by the applicant did receive any additional parking reduction pursuant to 36-321.
Okay. So the academic exercise, I don't really want to talk about it with this case because we're going to dismiss it. But if you'll remember, I don't know, a year ago, we went through this academic exercise in detail with a huge brief written, I think, by Chase. And in so much detail that your head's spinning. And he cited 100% of the cases that have been decided under the special permit to review what the reductions were. And at a certain point, we came to a policy conclusion that it makes no sense. You do an environmental study, you do a parking study based on the requested reduction in parking. That's the study. You're not doing a parking study and an environmental study based on 0 parking spaces. So it means that it would be contrary to the seeker and the technical analysis if you then allow DOB to reduce below what was concluded in the study, right? So that's what we determined. I feel like it was 2 years ago. We determined, or maybe it was more, because I remember Commissioner Ollie Brown had been watching these things and had expressed concern about this. I think it was more than 2 years ago. I don't know, we'd have to look it up. But anyway, there is a memo that it's got to be a 30-page memo that Chase wrote.
Okay, that's great, because then I don't know how I missed it, but I don't recall seeing that memo. So it would be great. I'm glad we did analyze that.
But so we're not going to talk about that.
No, we're not.
Hearing because
it's just a separate thing.
study.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
I just wanted to say that based on the history of the case, this is and the arguments that they made, I had discussed with our executive director, and dismissal would absolutely be appropriate because they're not prosecuting it.
Yes. So my question is more like the procedural. Do we have to go to hearing, or can we dismiss it now?
You need hearing.
Go to hearing. Tony
I think
feels-
it would be appropriate for them to respond to the
Okay.
board's.
Okay. All right. So we'll let them.
with Kurt.
Okay, just checking. Thank you. All right, let's move on.
Item number 27, 2020-43 BZ, 982 39th Street, Brooklyn.
Sorry, just a second. Okay, I believe we were only waiting for DEP sign-offs. We received air quality and noise sign-off on January 3rd. We have DEP hazmat sign-off as of October 6th, and just need a note on the drawing to provide the proposed vapor barrier and to indicate the cellar work that's
Sorry.
indicated on the DEP approval letter, which would be a condition to approval. I see Jello's hand up, and I also refer to in the remedial action plan, there's really specific language about how that sealer is going to, the vapor barrier will be worked and the cellar will be cleaned. And that's also referred to in the DEP sign off. Yeah, Jella, go ahead.
Thank you. Those two notes were sent to the applicant team, and they also need to, once they put those notes on the plans, they need to submit a final EAS with everything attached. They did try to do that, but we have these two notes on the plans. So that's a change. And then they need to sign their certification on the EAS short form.
Yes, okay, okay, thanks. I mean, we're not able to vote on this anyway, but it's certainly ready to close, right? We have everything signed off. They just need to finalize the documents.
Consistent with the board's practice, if you have all the seeker sign-offs, then you can close the case.
Right, okay, great, thank you.
Move on.
Yeah.
Item number 28, 2020-84 BZ, 161 Emerson Place, Brooklyn.
Okay. We received the revised DOB objections to include lot coverage. The architect should verify before we vote on this, definitely. I'd like the architect to go carefully through the project and make sure they have all of the needed waivers reflected in the objection sheet, because otherwise that could mess up their project. The cover letter clarifies with supporting materials the changes in funding and costs that were discussed at the last hearing. And there is a December 20th ESSHI conditional award letter included as well that indicates the very tight timeline of only 2 years under which these types of projects have to secure capital financing in order to actually vest the ESSHI funding. And I just think, you know, in the reality of everything, they only get 2 years to vest. It's just, I just think, you know, come on, loosen up a little bit. The Crimmins report, and that's maybe one of the reasons we don't get much housing built, affordable housing built. The Crimmins report has been updated as requested to cover the discussions at the last hearing. We asked that they put all of these discussions from the last hearing in writing. On the massing question, because we had questions about how to kind of improve the massing of the building. The parapet height was increased on the taller portion to better articulate the step down from one sort of tower to the next to the next. That had the added benefit of concealing the mechanical penthouse, which used to be the norm back in sort of what I call the good old days, when mechanical penthouses were treated as part of the architecture rather than as a boring but visible just blah box that's thrown on the roof. So I wish we would bring back treating mechanical rooms as part of the architecture, mechanical penthouses. The main front facade, or the west elevation in the bubbled set, appears to indicate that more was done with the windows at the top floor and along the last row of each massed form. But in comparing the most recent drawing to the November drawing, it's really hard to see the difference. I think it's the metal panels between the windows that are added, but it's that the shading on the drawing, I think, is concealing, unless you blow the drawing up really, really big on your screen, you don't see what they're talking about. And the drawings that we submit and we keep in our record are not, well, now they're PDFs. I don't actually know what DOB uses, but ultimately they could be printouts. So if you could just change the shading to make it clearer that the metal panels are there, and maybe call out with notes. I saw there was a note at the way bottom, but not sort of up there where the bubbles are. That would just make it more visible and easier for the agency to understand in the future. Okay. The north elevation is much improved with additional fenestration. And I appreciate that very much. The restrictive declaration states that there are 100, so now I'm talking about the restrictive declaration. So I'm satisfied with the design of the project, and I'm excited about this project. The restrictive declaration states that there are 102 units of affordable housing, whereas there are 103. I don't know if that's an error or the attitude that the super's apartment doesn't count, but they really do need to indicate that, because there's a disconnect between the drawings that say 103 and the RD. They travel together, and in the future, no one's going to understand what just happened. So please clarify that. I'd also like the restrictive declaration revised to tighten up some of the language. In short, the building must remain 100% affordable, serving 100% of the units to incomes of 60% of AMI or less for the life of the building. Right now it says all dwelling units in the proposed development will remain as affordable housing units as long as the development stands. Affordable housing units is a defined term and allows for a much broader range of incomes. So I need to make sure that that number 3 paragraph is changed to 100% affordable, serving 100% incomes of 60% AMI or less, for, as it can say, as long as the proposed development stands. The reason for that is this variance is only available to 100% below 60% of AMI. The restrictive deck also cannot be modified without consent of the BSA, and there can be no exception or otherwise. I'm referring to paragraph 4 that says, except as otherwise set forth herein, this declaration may not be modified, amended, or terminated without consent of the board. So there isn't an except as otherwise. It cannot be terminated, cannot be modified, amended, or terminated without consent of the board. And then there's this termination clause that was provided that can only be operable if the building is not built. So we're going to require this restrictive deck to be recorded prior to release of the resolution. And the only way you could terminate the resolution is if the building isn't built. So that needs to be clarified in the restrictive deck. And other than that, those were my comments. Vice Chair Shanda.
Just want to point out, if you look at the elevation, the applicant has put an arrow not only on the bottom of the drawings, but also on the top of the drawing, especially where the windows on the top have been aligned together, indicating that facing material dash metal panel.
Right, I know.
So,
But at the same time,
I think they were
shading,
trying,
the
right, they were
ceiling.
using the shading to show the area of non-compliance is what they were using.
Right.
My only comment when this was being discussed in terms of increasing the parapet height was if that has been analyzed in the SECRA for shadow analysis. I looked through the shadow analysis and the additional increase of 9 foot on this portion really does not result in any additional shadow cast on any of the sensitive receptors around the area. So I was okay with it. I though want to make it very clear that that the increase of the parapet wall height and additional of metal panel and some of these things, when the cost of the project is being evaluated at HPD or by SE or any of the other funding agencies, it is possible that as part of the value engineering, these elements may be asked to be reduced or eliminated. So I think we need to make sure that the applicant does not have to come back to us and go through a rigorous process of making this change. It can be done in the most simplest, quickest possible way of them to get an approval from the board if these modifications are required as part of the financial commitments of the various funding agencies involved in this project.
I would rather them make the building bigger than make it ugly. So this is a really serious issue for me. I don't want to be in charge of making low-income housing look like low-income housing. I don't want to do that. The whole idea of this variance was to create more low-income housing units and provide aesthetically appropriate solutions in neighborhoods. So HPD has to come to us and battle with us. I'd rather the building be bigger than that it be ugly. So I don't agree to that. This is something I strongly feel, and I've been involved in this kind of discipline for my whole life, and it's not okay. So Jella, go ahead.
I just wanted to answer the vice chair's question because she correctly wanted the seeker, review for shadows on the increased height. And they did provide not an entire EAS, but just a shadows chapter. And the shadows chapter was reviewed twice by the Parks Department and by LPC. And there were some changes made. And the final chapter that we received was from December 16th. And we received sign-offs from the Parks Department on December 22nd. And LPC, the final sign off for the increased height on January 3rd. And it analyzed 130 feet to the bulkhead. So
that includes the parapet, or we don't know?
I think so. I think that's the complete total height. But I have to look at the plans. Yeah. But it reflects the increase in height from the previous.
If anything, the incremental shadow would have been past the park, right? So the top of the building is already past the park. The top of the original building was already past the park. So if you add another bit to the shadow, it's not like it touches new sensitive receptors, so I think that's why it bypasses the issue of, because it's not additional height to the other two towers. That was the big change to the project, where the other two got tall, one got taller and one got filled in, where there was no tower at all before. I call them towers, but whatever, no structure at all before. So I'm going to continue to go around and then we'll pick up comments. Commissioner Ollie Brown.
I have no additional comments. I'm fine with the project as is.
Okay. Commissioner Shetta.
Thank you, Chair. I'm satisfied with the application and I have nothing further to add.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Shabeta.
Any additional to add either. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Yeah, Vice Chair Shonda, go ahead.
Yeah, from the shadow drawing, it wasn't clear what was the height that was being analyzed, but 130 is right as per the drawings. So that is that seems sound. I just want to go back and make one thing very, very clear. based on my years of experience at city planning and 10 years at HPD, I have not seen a project in my 10 years at HPD, a project that was considered schlocky. While yes, it is true, there were affordable housings that were built in the 60s and the 70s, early 80s, where they were not that attractive. But that motto and that concept that affordable housing has to look ugly to make it cost effective has been thrown out the window by HPD and many of the affordable housing providers and the affordable housing developers. So it is a mantra that has been applied at HPD solidly for all these years and continues to be. And a case in point is Villa Verde. Villa Verde was a competition that went through a design competition to win. Yet at the same time, it had to be value engineered down from some of its elements to make it cost effective. So while we may not have gotten what was shown on the drawings, but we did get something different than what one used to see in 60s, 70s, and 80s. So I am very, very respectful as an architect and a planner that has been working in city government and making sure city looks beautiful and habitable and pleasant, that these buildings remain attractive, yet we have to be very, very, very mindful of the cost of it. And that's what I really wanted to have stated. Thanks.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay, final cases, new cases, item number 29, 2021-32BZ, 1471 East 26th Street, Brooklyn.
We have proof of initial application to officials and of notice of hearing to officials and neighbors. Community board recommends approval. We have 5 letters in support. This is a semi-detached 2-story house to which it is proposed to extend both the first and second floors to a 20-foot rear yard, and the second story at the front to a 15-foot front yard, while the existing front yard is 17 foot 8 inches. So the second story will protrude in front of its attached neighbor, which does violence to the continuity of the street frontage and the adjoining building. The rear yard study shows that behind and adjacent and on most of the block, there are complying rear yards with 1-story garages. So the 2-story rear yard extension is incompatible with that condition. The statement of facts, I think disingenuously, which is rare for this applicant, represents that this board has allowed such 2-story rear yard extensions on these attached houses because of something to do with the attached nature of the houses. That is not the case, nor the reason that the board has occasionally permitted a 2-story rear yard extension with this house typology. In fact, the board has been sympathetic to this approach only where there is no front wall extension at the existing second floor, or where the third floor addition is set or where the third floor addition is set back far from the front wall line so as to retain the integrity of the attached buildings. You can easily see in plan how inappropriate their proposal is with respect to the attached neighbor. It's kind of the plan is ridiculous. So I have to say, if you want a 2-story rear yard extension that goes all the way back to 20 feet, then you must pull the front wall back at the second floor and maintain the enclosed porch and setback front wall line, which in fact is the condition not only of the adjacent attached house, but of many of the neighbors on either side on this block, on both sides of the street. Doing otherwise will indeed irreparably impair the neighborhood character. I'm very, very surprised to see such an aggressive approach from this applicant, and the architect, who I'm not surprised to see this approach from, knows very well from past experiences with these attached houses that that's not an acceptable solution. So for me, it's back to the drawing board and to do the right thing by this neighborhood. Those are my comments. Vice Chair Shanda.
Okay, first of all, there's a typo in statement of fact on page 2, third line. It should be minimum lot area instead of floor area of 3,800 square feet. With regards to this proposed enlargement to a semi-detached home, typically we have seen the applicants trying to struggle with either extending it in the rear or where possible in the front, or adding an attic floor, and especially in the semi-detached buildings, adding an attic floor has resulted in issues in terms of how the roof would sit with the abutting semi-detached unit. So in this case, the applicant chose to extend out the footprint on the front and the back. I thought it was reasonable, did not have any issues with it, and I'm satisfied with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Ollie Brown,
I have no comments.
Commissioner Sheta. Oh, you're muted.
Yep, I got it. Thank you. I have nothing to add. Thank you.
Commissioner Shabeta.
I have no comments. Thank you.
All right. All right. It is,
Wait, Madam Chair.
yeah.
So we have that decision. What do you want to do
Yes.
from
the lighting.
yesterday?
Yeah.
Call it?
Let's call it. Yeah.
Okay, everyone reviewed the plan, the
Yes,
submission?
the lighting plan was submitted. Right. Okay.
Okay, so we're recalling from yesterday, decision item number 7-33279BZ, 4320 Little Neck Parkway, Queens, received a submission today. I'm sorry, Chase?
Hi, yesterday the board stated that they would like a condition to the extent that increase shielding on any lights presenting greater than 00 lumens at the property line to ensure 0 lumens.
Yes.
Is that something that the board would like to impose, or has the submission clarified that?
No, so the submission does show that there's more than 0 on the property line, especially in one location, it's a little high. So I would still like that as a condition, and I'd like the owner to install shielding, which I'm sure they will do because they've been so responsive. Is that, you agree with that, Commissioner Sheta?
Yeah, I totally agree with that, especially if you look at the plan, that whoever took readings was like very greedy in providing readings along residential property lines. I believe just 2 readings along the entire residential property, along each of the property lines, the residential property lines. So I believe one point at the ends and one midpoint is not going to be like very helpful and like making sure that no spread to adjacent properties. So I want to keep the condition, and like I said, probably in 2, 3, 4, who knows, I'll shoot to the side like in the AM and try to take some readings with my phone.
So, yeah, okay, so hold on one second, I'm just trying to find the document again. What time was it sent? It's 104th, right? Yeah.
It was
okay.
sent yesterday, this morning, about,
Yeah. Hold on one second.
about 7:30, I think.
Yeah. I keep opening the wrong thing. Hold on one second. No. Sorry. I saw it, but I want to see what you're talking about. That's why.
It's actually 8:48.
Oh,
8:40.
thank you.
Yeah.
Really?
I got it from you,
No,
Chair.
okay, I sent it to you at 8:48, but actually
Yeah.
I got it earlier. Okay, so you're saying what? That there were only one reading taken in the middle, and yeah, we asked for it more frequently. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So right, but so at one location with the lights on, it's 1 foot candle or whatever, 1 lumen. I don't even know what these are.
And still, I'm not sure they are talking about lux.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether these are lux or foot candles.
It says lux. It says lux.
It says that's what it says, but I doubt. Luxes, if these are luxes, if you switch them to foot candles, they should be 0.0 something. And I doubt that lighting over there is that kind of like low.
Yeah. Okay.
we'll take it for record, but I don't want to hold the case. But
Yeah,
like I said, they have to like take their time and then check it, and after, probably when they check it and they make sure that it's working and they did whatever shielding is required, if any, they can like notify our PM. And after that, if the PM tells me that they are done, I'll shoot to there and try to collect some readings
okay,
to make sure that they are compliant.
okay. Because it's more than 0 at every reading location, whichever standard they're using, I don't know. So, so anyway, so yeah, so we want all of them adjusted in the field, and it's, yeah, in some cases, it's, in one case at least, it's significantly more than 0.
Just not to say we're granting something based on non-zero, so it's like a reason for other applicants to come
Yes.
and say you granted with. These are luxes, and luxes are 10 times foot candles. So if you want to make these in foot candles, that the maximum of these typically is 0.03.
A maximum
You see
lux?
0.31, 0.31. These should be, if you put them in foot candles or lumens, they should be 0.031, 0.028, 0.021. And that's why we're letting this go for now. But
Yes,
like
okay,
after they finalize and they take enough readings and they finalize the shielding, we're gonna go there and take a look and make sure that they are compliant.
I
Okay,
see.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, they are, Todd Dale just sent me an email saying they are lux from the owner. They are lux.
Yeah, it says lux on the drawings, but so it says 1 foot candle equals 10 lux,
Yes.
right? Okay. So if a lux is 1, then you've got 10, what? I'm so
1/10.
bad at this. 1/10.
You get what you get 1/10.
It's 0.1.
Wait,
I'm just doing
Just let
the
him finish.
calculation. I'm just doing the calculation on the website. If it's 1.08 lux, the foot candle is 0.10033353.
Okay, okay. All right, so that's why. So we should make a note, I don't know if it should be in the resolution, but somewhere in our record, it should be clear that because they're taken in lux, they're hardly noticeable, right?
And I'm not saying they are not luxes, just
Yeah.
to make sure that everybody understands. I'm not sure they are not luxes. What I'm saying is I'm trying to explain why we're granting this application with numbers that 0.31, 1.01. If we grant this without that kind of explanation, probably next hearing, somebody will show up and say, hey, on this project, you granted 1.08 and you let it go. I'm explaining that 1.08 is in luxes, which means it's 0.1, and the typical reading on this plan is 0.03.
Yes, okay. Got it, thank you. All right, got it. So,
Okay,
yeah, great.
that
Okay,
being
thank
said,
you.
do I take a vote?
Yes, all right. So a motion to grant on the condition we described, which is lumen spread to be kept at 0.0 along the residential property lines and be tested in the field with lights on, lights off to ensure this with shielding installed where indicated, and otherwise that all landscaping, fencing, paving, and trash enclosure shall be maintained in first-class condition and repaired and replaced as needed. So based on that, a motion to grant.
Chair Promoter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Artley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Sheffer,
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta.
Aye.
Application is granted. Okay, so that concludes the public review session for January 11th, 2022. We'll commence with the public hearing, or do you want to take a?
I think we should take a 10-minute break.
Okay.
Just a little breather. Okay, thank you. 10 minutes, we'll be back at 11:50. Okay, thanks. If everyone could come back, please. Okay.
Okay, we're back on the record, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Board of Standards and Appeals public hearing for January 11th, 2022. The first item up is SOC calendar, new cases, item number 22, 224-14BZ, 225-14A, 1534 Victory Boulevard, Staten Island.
Letting Elise in. Jan, yeah.
Hi, I should have Anthony Zeltzer on with me.
Do you know if he called in?
Ooh, I don't know if he calls or if he called, then I think his number ends.
We don't have anyone called in yet.
Oh, he said he's here and present, 2296
Nope.
on a
Oh, there he is.
landline.
He just showed up. Okay.
Okay.
There it is, yeah.
This is Anthony. Can you spell the last name?
Yes, 1 minute. Sorry, Anthony. Okay, so it's Z.
I am here as, I just unmuted myself.
Thank you.
Okay. You want to spell your own name, or do you want
Sure.
me
It's Zeltser.
You got that, Kurt?
Yes.
Thanks.
Okay, that's it, Ms. Fullader?
Mhm.
Okay, raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond honestly to the board questions?
I do.
Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Elise Fullader from Eric Palatnik PC on behalf of the applicant. I have
One
here
second,
with
one
me-
second. I didn't hear Mr. Zeltzer. Do you affirm, Mr. Zeltzer?
Yes, I do. I'm sorry. I have
Okay.
kids in the background, so I'm muted.
Oh, okay, that's okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Ms.
Um,
Fullader, proceed.
No problem. I have Anthony here with me from ownership, just in case you have any additional questions after I go through each of the comments. First, you asked why we're taking 4 years to pull and get our act together. As you noticed, we needed to file with this 2 GCL applications. They should be coming before you in March.
Oh,
They're filed at the Board of Standards and Appeals. We answered the notice of comments. And so I hope that answers that question. It took us a really long time to get the tax lots and get addresses for those 2 properties. The next question was about, there is a medical building, there are 3 medical practices there, and we can get you more photos, including more photos of the perimeter. Maybe that will clarify, but they are still operating in the building.
oh, they are, because the one image I saw, they look boarded up.
Anthony, is there anything, I know you have kids in the background, but is there anything you'd like to add on this?
No, that 1534, that everybody is present there. There's 3 tenants. Nothing on the actual building is boarded up, though.
Okay, all right, so they're
And I
operating.
apologize if maybe I don't see anything boarded up, but no, we are operating.
Okay,
And then photos, yeah, so we'll get you more photos and a more detailed timeline about construction in the next 4 years. They have started to pull everything for demolition and putting in the dry wells, etc. I spoke with the architect yesterday, so the
So they
process. is going.
actually, they started to get permits for the dry wells? Is that what you mean? Or they're
Said
actually doing
there's,
work?
yeah, they're working on the process for putting them in. They haven't put them in yet, but
They
so I
haven't
guess-
started the construction work, but they're getting the approvals. Is that
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Let me just make a note. Getting approved. And how about the tax lot apportionments?
Yeah, we filed that with the GCL application.
Oh, okay.
So the BSA will be seeing that in March. And if I can provide that if you need it,
Mhm.
because it's from the other application, in this application in a submission.
Okay. But the reason the GCLs weren't filed at the same time as the case, no, I forgot.
I
Never mind.
think
was-
I'm based on my meetings with the community board, they were going to propose something totally different back there. And after back and forth negotiations, the arrangement was to do the 2 residential in the rear because everyone agreed that that would be the best.
Oh, I see. So when you filed the original application, because it was a completely different thing, it was a parking lot.
Well, it was going to be a parking lot, but behind we wanted to put a totally different kind of building, not
I
those 2 residential homes.
Okay. Okay. All right.
But I wasn't here. That's just from
Yeah.
going to the community board and researching the history.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a parking garage, a parking lot also in the back. That was
Yeah.
my recollection, but never mind. Okay.
Oh, maybe you could probably, I wasn't there. I just know it wasn't going to be 2 residential homes.
Right. Okay. All right. Any other questions from commissioners? Anything? No? All right, that's good. So you'll give us photos of the site perimeter. And the purpose of this is, Mr. Zeltzer, are you the owner?
I am not the owner. I'm just a representative of the owner.
Okay, so to convey to the owner, we just need to make sure that while we're waiting for construction to start, that the perimeter, that the site is maintained so as not to be annoying to the neighbors. Okay,
Understood. No
Okay.
problem.
thank you. All right, no comments from commissioners. Let's go to the public.
So the case we're currently discussing is 224-14BZ, 225-14A, 1534 Victory Boulevard, Staten Island. If you wish to call in, it is 646-558-8656. The passcode is 942661. The ID number is 955-7605-5691. If you're in the Zoom room already, please raise your Zoom hand. And if you're calling in on the phone, press *9 to unmute.
Okay. I don't see anyone yet calling in. Okay, so how much time to get us this material and a statement that should include a statement about the status of the project,
Mhm.
about the GCL applications, because that's in a completely different application set, so we wouldn't know that here in the record, right?
Mhm.
And also about the filings for the dry wells and that kind of thing, just to show progress, and also to give us a timeline.
Okay, a week or 2 probably. We already have the information, just have to put it together.
Okay. All right.
Is it possible to
Yes.
close? Just wondering, just.
All right. Okay, I'm writing 3 weeks to submit just because.
Okay, whatever works. If we
Please.
close, then whatever works, then we're coming back for those GCLs no matter what.
Okay, no one called in. I think that was enough time for people to call in. So I'd like to make a motion to close.
Chair Perlmutter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta,
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Item number 23, 258-15BZ, 2619 East 16th Street, Brooklyn.
Elise again. I should have Yelena.
Yes. She's in.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, raise your right hand. Ms. Reichman on mute.
Yes,
Okay, raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond honestly to board member questions? Thank
Yes,
you.
I do.
Okay.
Elise Fullader from Eric Polanic PC on behalf of the applicant. I'm here with Yelena, who is ownership, and we will go through the questions. So first, we heard your question about getting the 2018 DOB approved plans. Not a problem. We will submit those into the record. I guess anything in the resolution is something your team will deal with. We can speak with council if necessary. We can verify that this still is a tandem relationship with the other down the street, medical use. And ownership has not changed. Maybe someone else signed the owners. I don't know why there's a thinking that ownership changed, but there has been no change of ownership. And then we are more than happy to provide photos of the perimeter of the site and a more detailed timeline about construction.
Great. Any comments, questions from commissioners?
Yeah, I think the reason I mentioned the ownership is because it's in the condition.
Oh,
and no, it says the affidavit of ownership, but I thought it was a different name. Maybe that's why. Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes if it's like a principal, someone different signs, but
okay. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, good. All right, so let's go to the public.
Case we are currently discussing is 258 15BZ, 2619 East 16th Street, Brooklyn. If you wish to call in, it is 646-558-8656. The Zoom webinar ID number is 955-7605-5691. The passcode to be required is 942661. If you are in the Zoom room, please raise your Zoom hand. If you are calling in, press *6 to unmute.
Okay, so how much time to submit the DOB drawings, the timeline?
I guess something similar to what we just discussed on the other one. It shouldn't be too hard to get any of them.
And also please mention that the tandem relationship is still in place.
Okay,
and
no
change
problem.
To clarify that, okay?
Mhm.
All right, I'm just sort of trying to give a little more time for a dial-in. So I'm making 3 weeks to submit.
Okay.
And I don't see anyone calling in, so I'd like to close this as well.
Chair Promoter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta,
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta.
Aye.
Okay, application's closed. Appeals calendar, item number 24, 2019-276A, 15 Stewart Lane, Queens, and I just emailed you revised Reg RD.
Oh, on this, on Stewart
Yes.
Lane? Okay, so let's, I'm just gonna ask Ms. Brakeman to remove. Yes. I just don't want so many people who don't belong in the room. Okay. Okay, go ahead. I didn't see the RD, but I'll take a look. Okay.
Okay.
Hi, good afternoon. Neil Weisford on behalf of the applicant. I don't
You
believe
don't
I
need to
need
be
to.
sworn in, so go ahead.
I attended a review session, and as you know, we received DEP approval, and I just wanted to thank Ms. Matias again for all her assistance in getting that. And the only other comment, I believe, was 2 revisions to the restrictive declaration, which we've made. I sent both a red line and a clean version, make it easy on you. And I believe that was it. And some of the other things were going to be put into the resolution.
Okay, so, hold on a second. So you picked up the typo about adjacent easement area,
Yes,
and you added as an exhibit the survey,
correct.
the easement survey. Okay, good. All right. So then, any comments from commissioners? Let's go to the public.
Okay, the case that we are currently discussing is 2019-276A, 15 Stewart Lane, Queens. If you wish to call in, it is 646-558-8656. The Zoom webinar ID number is 955-7605-5691. The passcode to be required is 952661. If you are in the Zoom room, raise your Zoom hand. If you are calling by the phone, press *6 to unmute.
Okay. While we wait for people to call in, I'm just taking a quick look at the restrictive deck.
I sent it to Chase and Kurt also.
Good, okay. Change the date to 2022.
Oh,
Approved by the city as further described in the survey attached as Exhibit A and made a part hereof, the easement area. And then, wait a minute, the easement area, okay. And then the adjacent easement area word was added. Those are the only changes. Okay, that's good. And then I see the
Exhibit A and Exhibit B is the
Exhibit
site
A and
plan.
B. Yeah.
And the,
So that was the thing. So I think there was a question about whether DOT was sent is this the one that I asked?
I believe it.
Yeah.
Request.
I believe we did, but DOT's letter was that they had no CIP.
What's a CIP?
I'm sorry, I always do that, capital improvement.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Sorry, I always do that.
Right, but they simply asked for a copy of the survey.
I'm pretty sure we did send that.
Okay, so
Right,
can we just make
Stuart?
sure?
Neil.
I don't believe it was DOT who requested this survey. This is the first I'm hearing of that, I believe. I think the chair just wanted a copy to see exactly what the survey was.
No. I read it in DOT's letter, February 23rd, 21 letter. That's, I got to, I'm just looking, hold on a second.
I'll double check that I sent it, but I believe the letter was a sign off anyway.
No, it was a sign off, but hold on a second. Let me just get to it. 217A. Where is it? 276. There we go.
276A.
Yeah. So it's DOT response letter from 2/24. They said, please submit a survey. This is February 23rd, 2021. Please submit a survey of the subject site that is signed and stamped by a licensed surveyor and dated within the last 10 years.
That's different. That has been provided, I believe. I mean, we've had a survey for a while.
No. Can you verify? I know you've had a survey. Did you give it to DOT is the question. Can you just verify that you have a record of having given it to DOT?
Sure, and if not, we'll send it right away.
Okay, that's the thing.
Yeah, I'll double check my emails because I know that was when he sent it.
Yeah, okay, because we don't show a submission letter to them with the survey in our records. I just want to make sure they have what they asked for. Okay. All right. So then there's no submission required. So I'd like to close this and just make sure you get that survey to DOT. Okay.
So the motion to close, Chair Perlmutter,
Yes.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta,
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta.
Aye.
Okay, application closed. Okay. We'll let you know when the decision date is, Neil.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
Aye.
Zoning calendar, continued hearing items. Item number 25, 2019, 192 BZ, 16 Harrison Place, Brooklyn. Todd. Jessica. Is there anyone else, Todd?
Hi, good afternoon. I believe Jessica Corus also joined.
We
I
have
see
her.
Jessica's in there. There's Jessica. Okay, that's it.
Anybody
You with
else?
Jessica?
No, just
Anyone
the two
else,
of us.
Todd?
Just the
Okay.
two of us, I'm sorry.
Raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond honestly to board member questions?
I do
Yes.
affirm.
I affirm.
Okay. Thank you. Happy New Year to everybody. Didn't have a chance to speak to anybody at the last hearing. We did attend the review session and heard the comments of the board. I do just want to make a few comments in response to that. I think the board as a whole made your collective position very clear, but just a few comments. First, with respect to the MTA submission, I just want to clarify and make it clear that we received a request to submit the MTA plans on Friday, January 7th. And we submitted those as soon as possible once we received them from the architect on Monday, January 10th. So that is the timing of when we received the request and when we made the submission. I'm not sure why they weren't made available earlier, but just to clarify for the record. And also, there was some discussion regarding the MTA submissions. They were not included in prior financial studies just because the letter, I believe, as Commissioner Shedd noted, the approval letter came through from the MTA in August, and the estimates weren't available at the time the last analysis was submitted. So some just practical standpoints with respect to the MTA submission. I also think it's important to note, just generally, to make it very clear, that the property owner is aware of all the comments and discussion that have occurred at every hearing before the board, and we've reviewed it with the property owner. And the property owner has been involved and aware of every single submission that has been made to the board in response to prior hearings and discussion. So I want to make sure that there's absolutely clear for the record that there's no issue of lack of communication between the property owner and the applicant team. And just generally, to make it clear, we maintain that the proposed development that was presented to the board satisfies both the B and the E finding, and that a reduction of the floor area of the building both would not satisfy the numbers that have been presented in the financial analysis, and also from a practical, real situation, reducing the building in floor area would make it an infeasible project. So we are satisfied with the submission that's made and the analysis has been made, and we believe it meets the B and E finding. We understand the position the board has set forth, or some of the commissioners have set forth, but the submission on record shows that all of the as of right scenarios that we've reviewed, the one-story warehouse recently, the artist loft that was actually reviewed and approved by Department of Buildings, and then the alternate bulk variants were all infeasible options, whereas the proposed development of a residential building that is in character with the history of the site and surrounding development on the street is the only feasible option for development of the subject lot. I'm happy to answer if there's any particular questions that have been presented about the materials we have, but I just felt it was important to note those items at the start. Ms. Corus also may have comments or responses to some specific items that were raised with respect to the financial analysis, which really was the bulk of the most recent submission.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Corus, you want to add anything?
Yes, hi. Good afternoon, Jessica Corus here on behalf of the applicant. We were in attendance at this morning's executive session and very clearly heard the comments from the commissioners and want to say thank you for your thorough review. And we respect the time and effort it takes to go through these applications. I'd like to just take the opportunity to speak this afternoon to clarify two items for the record. The first being the reasoning behind the apartment rents modification. It was based on the quality of the finishes in the Marshall and Swift, not the class of the building. The Swift estimator cut sheet distinguishes between Class A, Class B, Class C, which discusses the construction, but then also the interior level of finishes. And as you move through that chart, the finishes decrease. I don't know anyone either, Commissioner Otley Brown, who would choose to rent in a class of construction building unless you're, with the exception of this terrible headline news that came out of the Bronx recently. But other than that, you look at the level of finishes, and we totally agree. And that's why I took a harder look at the comps, provided additional interior photos, and made a decision that the cost estimates weren't clearly in line with the level of finish provided in the comps. And it was an attempt to reconcile. And I do apologize if it seems like it's a game of whack-a-mole, but it was an attempt to be thoroughly thought through. The second point that I wanted to make today was in regards to the one-story warehouse. The design was intended to be as realistic as possible. It's just under 2,200 square feet, and I thought a cellar level and elevator access providing up and down to move goods from the first floor to the lower floor would make sense. Since you're storing a warehouse, you'd be doing work on one level, storing goods on another level. The tenants, especially with supply chain issues, would be needing storage space and that space is all income producing. So even though there's two means of egress and an elevator, all that gross square footage in the rectangle is renting on the first floor and the cellar. Now, if we do remove the cellar from consideration, you're correct, there'd be no MTA costs that would get zeroed out. The elevator could be removed. There'd be just some spread footings. I took a quick look at that in my spreadsheet. I didn't fully rerun the Marshall and Swift just because I can see the writing on the wall. There's really no point, but I did want to just say that my first look at it showed that the one-story warehouse with no cellar was still not feasible. So just in closing, I appreciate your time and the opportunity to present on this project, and look forward to the next one.
Thank you. Okay. Commissioner Shett, are you sure you want to say something? Okay, go ahead.
We cannot hear Commissioner Shett.
No, you're completely
Muted.
Thank you. Yes, I want to comment on what is said. Yes, regarding the feasibility of the warehouse option without a cellar and without the MTA, I just want to say that if you eliminate the excavation support, the underpinning, and the slope foundation option that they are willing to use, eliminate the foundation walls, the reduction of these elements by itself will be almost $400,000. And add to that, if you eliminate the MTA cost, because the excavation probably will take like a 2-day period or so, you don't have to do nothing about the MTA other than submitting the drawings to MTA, and probably you will get a letter of no objection from them. So you don't need to like do extensive monitoring or do whatever of that. Even if you consider the cellar itself, the MTA monitoring cost reduction, as I explained, is what is being submitted to the applicant by his own consultant, is an estimate on the order of less than 20 grand. I'm really like struggling and amazed by how this less than 20 grand figure went up to $245,000. So definitely, one word, if you eliminate the cellar, if you mitigate the cost for the MTA to the real numbers, not the numbers that just made up, the warehouse option without cellar will be feasible. That's I wanted to respond to that. Thank you.
Sir, you also lose income. So I just wanted to put that on the record. As you reduce costs by eliminating the cellar, you're also removing income. So it,
I totally understand. I can see that right now you're short by about 400,000. If you take the cost off, the cost that's gonna be eliminated is gonna be way more than that number. Probably it's gonna be on the order of 650 grand. I don't think the income for the seller is gonna like manifest the difference of 250,000. That's why I'm saying the seller, the one-story warehouse without seller definitely will be feasible.
Okay, I don't want to debate this anymore. We've had so much written record to review with lots and lots of time to review it. And I don't want to have a kind of a review of non-written record anymore because I don't think there's any point. I'd like to go to the public.
The case we are currently discussing is 2019-192 BZ, 16 Harrison Place, Brooklyn. Should you wish to call in, it is 646-558-8656. The webinar ID number is 955-7605-5691. The passcode is 942661. If you are in the Zoom room, please raise your Zoom hand. If you are calling in, press *6 to unmute.
Okay. So we need to give it a little time for people to call in if there's anyone. All right, so no further submissions on this. We've read Reams. So I'd like to make a motion to close.
Chair Perlmutter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown.
Aye.
Could you repeat that?
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Sheta,
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta.
Aye.
It's
Okay,
closed.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 26, 2019-278 BZ, 9201 Fifth Avenue, Brooklyn.
Todd Dale for the applicant.
You the only one?
I am the only one.
Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond honestly to board member questions?
I so affirm. Thank you. I did hear the comments that were made at review session. I just have a few just brief comments in response to that. First, just for a point of education, I guess, or information for Vice Chair Chanda, you had asked about, the study, and I believe, Chair, you referenced a memo. That is in the Wortman Avenue case, which is calendar number 2018-25-BZ. If you want to go back and look at that. If you can't find that, you can have someone reach out to our office and we can provide that memo to you. Okay. With respect to the question as to why those cases were included, we wanted to include those cases to reference in response to some brief discussion that happened at the initial hearing for this application, when there were comments regarding the parking study and a requirement to provide the number of spaces that the parking study would show after the special permit grant on site. We provided those cases in reference to show that the waiver under 3623 and the special permit had been both applied, or at least the board had previously in other cases not weighed in to comment on that. And we just wanted to say that the discussion that happened in the initial hearing, where there was talk about requiring provision of those spaces on the site, was contrary to those cases. So that's why they were provided for reference. And we would also just, briefly reiterate what was put in the letter, that the parking demand study is not specifically required by the special permit under 7344, that the parking demand study is not required under seeker because it doesn't reach any particular thresholds, and that providing the parking demand study is just an excessive cost for an item that's not statutorily required, and therefore that's what the position of the letter sets forth, that it should not be required for this application.
Okay, I'm going to reiterate, actually, the statute allows us to have these parking studies conducted, and the board has consistently very consistently required the parking studies. And by the way, the board is charged with making findings, so it decides what facts it needs to review in order to make its determinations. But I understand your position. Okay.
If you could, for the record, do you have the section of the zoning resolution that states that the parking demand study is required?
It says the board may request a parking study, and as
Uh,
long as
Sorry,
I don't want to debate this now. You have lots of papers in your submission. Yeah, Commissioner Sheta.
Yeah, I believe section 73-02, under further requirements, second paragraph, it clearly indicates that the board is authorized and has the power to request or to look into substantial evidence. And I read from the section, the second paragraph, in any such case, each finding shall be supported by substantial evidence or other data considered by the board in reaching its decision. So this section clearly enables the board to ask for data and look into it to base his decision on. And I believe nothing is more relevant to waiving parking spots than a parking study. We didn't ask for a structural analysis for the building. We just asked for something that's very relevant to the decision that we requested to make.
understood. Thank you for taking the time to point out that section. I would just note briefly that it says each finding shall be supported by substantial evidence. The very limited findings of 7344 only require that it meet a certain use and parking requirement, and that a condition be put on the certificate of occupancy. There's no such finding as part under 7344 that would require a parking study. So thank you for pointing that out. We would disagree with that interpretation, but I don't want to belabor the point here. Thank you.
You're also ignoring section 7303, but we're not going to discuss pending litigation right now.
7303 has nothing, 7304 has nothing, and we're more than happy to engage in that legal finding if you wish to continue.
I think
No,
that
we
I
don't
think
want
we've
to
done.
engage. We're done. We're done with this. All right. I don't want to do this. I'm offended by this discussion, frankly, given our long history of behavior. So, okay, we're closing this hearing. I think we have to open it up to the public. However, I know there was last minute testimony submitted in opposition to this case. There's one or two names I don't recognize in the waiting room who may be related to that. So let's go to the public.
The case we are currently discussing is 2019-278 BZ, 9201 Fifth Avenue, Brooklyn. Should you wish to call in, it is 646-558-8656. The passcode is 942661. The webinar ID number is 955-7605-5691. If you are in the Zoom room, please raise your Zoom hand. If you're calling on the phone, press *6 to unmute.
Okay, so there, let's see, hold on a second. There's one person in the waiting room who called in. If you want to speak on this application, please raise your Zoom hand by *9.
*9, sorry.
Yes, *9. And there's a couple of other names I don't recognize in the Zoom room. If you want to speak on this, raise your Zoom hand. Okay, so *9, yeah, so that person, that's who I thought, okay. And to unmute yourself, *6 on your telephone. *6 on your telephone to unmute. There you go.
Hi.
Could you state your name, please?
My name is Marissa Falero. I'm a resident of an adjacent property.
So what property are you calling about?
I'm calling about the property at the intersection of 5th Avenue and 92nd Street in Brooklyn.
Okay, could you spell your last name, please?
Of course, it's F like Frank, A like Apple, L like Larry, E like Edward, and R like Robert, and O like Orange.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
I simply wanted to address you and ask you to please consider the submission I made last minute yesterday after having an opportunity to review the applicant's submissions and Ms. Leung's opposition to it. I join her in every regard. I feel like this parcel is not suited for the proposed uses. The plans are not particularly illustrative of how the proposed use will not impact the area, and the submission of the applicant was extremely short-sighted, if not intentionally misleading, as to the potential effects on our community here. And other than that, simply rely on my submission. It seems that the board is thoughtfully addressing it anyway.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate very much you calling in, and the submission is very detailed. So appreciate that. And that we got it, I think, this morning, right? So I don't know how many commissioners had a chance to actually read it in detail. I could only skim it quickly.
I do apologize.
Okay, so but
it's just that with everything that's going on, personal matters like this all of my personal stuff is sort of getting last minute attention in this economy.
Sure, understood. As with everyone. Thank you very much. Okay, thanks
Thank you.
for calling.
Have a great day.
I don't see any other people in the waiting room with their hands up to speak. So I'd like to make a motion to close.
Vice Chair has a hand up.
Yeah. Vice Chair Shonda, go ahead.
I think I just want to be clear for the record is that the use is permitted. It's the special permit that is before us, which is the reduction of the parking.
Right.
The medical facility use is permitted. It's the parking reduction is what's being deliberated.
Yes. Oh, true. Okay. For the benefit of Ms. Falero, perhaps she doesn't understand that. We're not looking at the use. We're only looking at whether the parking can be reduced for the use. That's the issue before us. Okay, thank you. All right, so a motion to close.
Chair Perlmutter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Chetta,
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 27, 2020, 43BZ, 982 39th Street, Brooklyn.
Hello?
Hi, Mr.
Hi.
Wright. Can you video?
Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, hi. Thank you. Thank you, commissioners.
I gotta swear you in, Mr. Wright, just one
Oh,
sec.
yes, go ahead. Sure.
Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board to respond honestly to board member questions? There you are. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Okay.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
So I think we're down to the end here. There is some notes in the plans. I got some notes last week and I submitted revised plans, but some more notes came in. So I thought I'd wait until we were done with this hearing to make sure I have all, so I don't keep submitting multiple copies of the plans. So I have two more notes that were suggested that we can add, including the one I think you referenced about the cellar, the detailed one about the cellar, which I've got from BSA staff. So once we're done with this, I'll submit revised plans with the notes. I think Kevin, who should be on here someplace, put in the EAS, revised EAS. And so I think we're done, unless there's some other questions by the commission on this matter.
Right. Yeah. So just for the record, I'm just going to read what it says on the DEP sign off. It says the September 2021 RAP proposes a thorough cleaning of the cellar floor installation of a sump cover in the cellar, ceiling slab cracks, cut or utility entries in the cellar floor with a non-volatile organic compound caulk and or foam, such as a minimum 20 millimeter land science technology retro coat sealer and gel, as well as inspection and approval of the ceiling of the cellar floor. And the August 21 CHASP addresses worker and community health and safety during development. And really basically, yes.
I think that's not a note, that's in the EAS, right?
No, that's in the sign off letter from DEP.
Oh, okay. All right,
I'm
sorry.
reading for the benefit of our council so they understand that there'll be words to that effect as
Yes.
a condition. The wrap itself says something a little bit differently. It gets into all the product names for the gel and the caulk and all of that. So I don't know that we need that much specificity in our resolution. Jella, go ahead.
Well, the final EAS has plans attached to it, so the most recent set of plans needs to be attached, and also it wasn't signed.
The EAS wasn't signed, right? This is
The
certification
EAS
form.
was not signed. Yeah, the certification part. It's section 20 of the short form.
Okay, I have to get new plans to Kevin, so I'll get the plans in ASAP, and then he can resubmit with the new plans. Like I said, I don't want to keep changing plans every other day, and he'll sign it, I'm sure.
Okay, thanks.
And then you're right, Chair. The note I have for the plans is basically says what you just said, just not quite as much detail, but I have a nice, but it basically lays out the cellar floor requirements.
Right. I mean, the issue is sealing the cellar with the
Yeah,
right.
it's all in the note I'm going to add to the plans. Not quite the detail from the, but enough, I think that should satisfy your concerns.
Well, it's whatever you receive from Jella. That's
Yes,
what you should put on.
exactly.
Okay.
That's exactly what I'm going to put in there.
Okay. All right. So then let's go to the public.
Stella, you have your hand up still?
No, I don't think so.
Oh,
I didn't.
Okay, fine. Okay, the case we are discussing is 2020-43BZ, 982 39th Street, Brooklyn. Should you wish to call in, it is 646-558-8656. The Weber ID number is 955-7605-5691. The passcode is 942661. If you're in the Zoom room, raise your Zoom hand, press *9, and if you're calling in, press *6 to unmute.
Okay, how much time to submit?
I can have the plans in by Friday. I mean, I have to talk to Kevin, but I think we can have it all within a week. Okay, let's say a week. Let's say a week. Okay.
So, okay.
To make it realistic, because I have to talk to Kevin, let's say a week.
Right, that's what I'm gonna do. Okay, so
Okay, that's fine.
the reason that I say that, unless there's a no submission, I could put it on for the next hearing, but when there's a submission, I won't be able to put it on for decision until the 1st February. Okay, so that's, you should plan accordingly, okay?
That's fine. That's fine.
So then I don't see anyone calling in, and I'd like to make a motion to close.
Chair Perlmutter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta,
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Happy New Year. Thank you very much for your cooperation and help. Appreciate it.
Sure, thank you.
Item number 28, 2020-84BZ, 161 Emerson Place, Brooklyn.
All right, so we have Mr. Schnackenberg. Probably, I know Rebecca Crimmins. John Wolfling, is that right? I believe so.
Schnackenberg.
And Nikon Ori, I think, yes. Is that right? I don't know. Yeah, Nikon Ori also. Yes, okay, and oops, what happened?
Is that it, David?
Hi, everybody.
Hello. Hi, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Hope everyone's, healthy and well.
Gonna raise your hands.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Do that.
Yeah, everybody raise their hands and unmute, please. Okay. Do you affirm, tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond honestly to board member questions?
You.
I do.
Okay, David, you can proceed.
So again, Happy New Year. Thank you, everybody. We heard the comments this morning. We appreciate all of them. Just going to run through a couple of points, ask one question, then I'll quickly get out of your hair. First of all, thanks to everyone for sort of speaking to the difficulties of affordable housing. In this hearing and the previous hearing, we really appreciate that the board really appreciates how difficult it is to build quality affordable housing. That's what we think we're doing. Also want to thank the staff on this application. As always, just like BSA staff is tremendous. Ms. Pranga, who's our project manager, was so helpful and did double duty when we had to get a second round of agency sign-offs from all of the agencies really, really quickly. So we really appreciate her help and council's help and everyone's help. So jumping into some of the comments, we did hear all the comments on the restrictive declaration. We will, of course, revise the restrictive declaration to say exactly what the chair would like to see in it. We will also clarify that the 102 units is accepting the superintendent's unit, and we'll make that clear in the restrictive declaration. I apologize for that oversight. We understand that the restrictive declaration it has to be both approved by the board and actually recorded before the issuance of the resolution. So we are hopeful that we can still close today, provided that we get you the restrictive declaration, and council will approve it, of course. We also, this is sort of a tricky issue that was highlighted by the Commissioner Chanda's comments as well as the chair's comments. We really appreciate Commissioner Chanda mentioning that sometimes value engineering requires changes at HPD after the board approval. And this is something that I've worked closely with Carlo and with other BSA staff on trying to find a solution. At the same time, the chair's comments that we want to build beautiful buildings that improve our city, like that's really important as well. Datner, our project architect, really lives in that space, right? I think that Datner designs extraordinary buildings within these financial constraints of affordable housing, and that's what we're trying to do. That's what we'll continue to try to do. With that in mind, and also the sort of the tight ESHI schedule that the chair noted, our 2-year window, any consideration that can be given to potential tweaks by HPD that don't necessarily increase the degree of our waivers. We'd appreciate any thought or anything we can do sort of forward thinking that would mean at worst requesting by letter of substantial compliance any changes rather than an amendment. I know that that's a very tricky thing to say because obviously we don't know what changes are coming. I think that's what the chair was suggesting earlier. But we just really appreciate that everyone's thinking about it. And then I
would ask, actually, because we've unfortunately had a lot of experience with this subject, that when HPD begins to negotiate you, that you insist on including BSA in the conversation. Because what's been happening is, hi, Carlo, just one second. What's been happening is we get these letter of substantial compliance requests after HPD's frankly, damage is done. And they're unappreciative of the process that we go through, where, how long has this been with us? A year, something like that, where we work on these cases for a year and in several minutes, they're undone. And so if you could be sure to include a person from the BSA in the conversations with HPD, that will facilitate I'd say, the ongoing, the ability to continue with your project.
That's
right,
very
okay.
generous. We appreciate that.
This agency is aware, because on another case, we are completely unaware as they completely changed the program.
Okay.
And then the sad applicant comes to us and say, what do we do? HPD completely changed the program. Right.
That's very generous. If someone from BSA staff can join us at a builds meeting or at least be on emails and a phone call, we'd really appreciate it. And thank you again. Thank you in advance for that one. Would the
So,
commission?
just let me, Carlo raised his hand when I started to say that, so he may completely disagree with what I just said. Go ahead, Carlo.
No, thank you, Madam Chair. No, David, I totally agree with the chair. You know, you could always reach out to me. Like I said, I'm myself and Jella typically are the ones that engage with HPD, and you know, they've been engaging with us during prospective changes. You know, obviously, funding is a discretionary action in itself. Sometimes it implicates environmental reviews that are subsequent to ours, you know, so at any stage, please do reach out. Like I said, we've had a good working relationship with a lot of team members at HPD, and, you know, anything that can ease the process, you know, obviously the goal is that any changes, you know, if they can be done administratively, that's the path we would seek.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you. We'll certainly do that. Would the chair or the commissioners like Datner to go through some of the changes? It sounds like some of the things may be picked up in rendering, or are you comfortable with us proceeding with the plans?
No. The plans were readable. I'd just like Mr. Wolfling to change the shading so it's clear that we're talking about that panel system to sort of designate the cornice line, and then that wrap around corner. It's because we read on these little screens, and you're working on everything blown up big when you're working on the details. And so that's not actually how we see the project in the future. Like a future board won't see that because it's grayed out so much, it's really hard to see. Okay.
So we can improve the graphics on our proposed condition drawings.
Great, thanks.
Okay, sure.
That's the only thing that needs to change on the drawings. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. I don't think there's anything else, right? No, I don't think there was anything else. It's really, oh, Jella, go ahead.
So a final EAS with all the updated chapters and the sign-offs and the plans needs to be submitted.
It's ready to come in. Are we okay to submit now, Jella?
Well, you have that shading.
With the shaded plans, yeah.
Yeah. Yes,
Okay.
you can do that.
John, how much time do we need to sort of revise?
Oh, wait a
this?
second. I always use the timing to sort of stall for the Zoom thing. So let's not talk about the timing yet, okay? Because we're going to go to the public. Okay. Let's go to the public.
The case we are currently discussing is 2020-84BZ 161 Emerson Place, Brooklyn. The call-in number is 646-558-8656. The Weber ID number is 955-7605-5691. Passcode is 942661. Should you wish to call in, and if you are in the Zoom room, raise your Zoom hand, press *9. And if you're calling in, press *6 to unmute.
Good. Okay. So when I say stall, there's a 20-second delay between the YouTube video and between us speaking and the YouTube video. So I always sort of have a nice conversation about how much time to submit and all of that, because it usually takes more than 20 seconds. Carlo, go ahead.
Yeah, no, just to respond to Mr. Schackenberg's question regarding the EAS. I mean, it could be submitted at any time.
You have to do the plans.
We're waiting for the plans that will be part of that EAS. So as soon as the plans are done, the EAS can be submitted.
Yeah, but I think that was the point, that the plans need to be revised before. So and that takes Mr. Wolfling a little bit of time to do so and submit, etc. Okay.
I guess it'll take us a couple days to get that done, but it'll be quick.
So the question is, do you think you could get all of this submitted by Friday or Monday? Let's say Monday. No, Monday's a holiday, right?
The 17th says city holiday, yeah.
Yeah. By so Friday or Tuesday. How about that?
John, what's your?
I don't see a problem. I don't see a problem with that. I don't know how much time you need on your end, David, to package things up, but we can get this to you very quickly.
Okay, the EAS is done, so we can start on Friday.
Okay, great.
Okay, so I'm giving you till January 18 to submit because there's a holiday on Monday. No one will see it anyway.
Thank you.
Arguably, even though a lot of us work no matter what. And that way, as we discussed, I'll put this on, we're going to close today and we'll put this on for decision for the next hearing, which I believe is February 8th.
Oh, no, I
Right,
thought it was
am
the 24th, Madam.
No,
Chair.
it's,
Oh, no, the 24th, sorry, the 24th. I lost track with where we're up to now. Okay, the
Okay.
24th.
Carlo?
Yeah, no, just, and again, just a reminder of there needs to be an update to the restricted declaration, a correction. Okay.
Yeah.
He knows, yeah, okay.
David, if you
All
don't
right.
mind, I'd like to say one thing, which is just a thank you to the board. I think this building has gotten better through this process, through your collaboration and flexibility. So thank you.
And I want to thank you for being inventive in the solutions, and please, from now on, hide your mechanical bulkheads, because remember those days on Park Avenue when they were like little temples and all kinds of things like that. Maybe you can't make a temple, but you can make something, right? Okay, thank you very much. And I want to thank again the entire applicant group. I believe what you do is very important, and I'm thrilled that this kind of new invented variance makes possible the development of more low-income housing, especially in the special needs context, but low-income housing in general. So again, thanks so much to everyone and to the staff for making this possible, our staff. And so I'd like to make a motion to close.
Chair Perlmutter?
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda?
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta?
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, see you in kind of 2 weeks.
thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. This was great.
Thank you.
New
Aye.
cases, I'm sorry, may I go on, Madam
Go
Chair?
ahead.
New cases, item number 29, 2021, 32BZ, 1471 East 26th Street, Brooklyn.
My video is not working.
Okay, you're the only one, Jay?
Lewis may be here. I told him to try and,
Louis Garfinkel?
We don't see him.
there's a delay on the YouTube. There's also a delay when you're put from from observer to panelist. So I'm never sure if you're hearing me or not. So I don't know if Lewis called in yet. He was at a DOB meeting.
There's no sign of him.
Okay, so I'm ready to go.
Okay. Do you affirm, tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond honestly to board member questions?
I do. Jay Goldstein for the applicant. We heard the review session. I discussed it with my client and with Mr. Garfinkel. We appreciate the chair's comments and we will revise accordingly.
Okay, great. I mean, you've been down this road before.
I
so
understand.
you know that.
That's why the conversation was quick with the client.
Okay, good. All right, I appreciate
You've
your
been in
efficient-
private sector, you know, yeah, we have to do.
I know what it's like. And I know you specialize in one and done, so I'm expecting two and done, right?
So the plan is to, as sorry, as the chair noted, we will retain the front of the house as is and just do the extension at the rear, first and second to 20 feet. So therefore, I'd ask if possible, since that's exactly, those are the only changes, would it be possible to close?
No, I need to see drawings. No, I've been burned before by closing before I saw drawings. Not doing that again. Okay.
Okay.
Not that I don't trust you. Just saying. Had
No,
bad.
I took over those cases, so I'm fine, no problem.
Never mind.
Tisk, tisk, Mr.
Okay, let's go to the
Goldstein.
public before we get in trouble. Thank you.
The case we are currently discussing is 2021-32BZ 1471 East 26th Street, Brooklyn. Should you wish to call in, it is 646-558-8656. The Weber ID number is 955-7605-5691. The passcode, should you require it, is 942661. If you are in the Zoom room already, please raise your Zoom hand, press *9. And if you are calling in, press *6 to unmute.
Okay, So how much time to do this? Don't tell me 2 weeks.
1 week. It's 2 days. I have my, we know exactly what we're doing, so there's no real, should be quick.
I know, but he has to redesign the project. I mean, right?
Not
I'm not gonna
really.
do it.
You can- No, no,
All right,
it can be done within a week. So if I can get the earliest
Okay,
decision.
but we're
that'd be
not going to be able to put you on for the next hearing anyway, so there's no point in making that comment. So, so, all right. Okay. All right then. And I didn't see anyone calling in. All right. Okay, thank you. And also, please make it good looking. No ephes, no vinyl siding, okay? If I didn't mention that, right? Make sure everything is dimensioned, all the heights, all the depths, all the yards. So we don't have to go back and say, but we don't know what the dimensions are. You know the drill, okay? Okay. All right, thank you. So I'm noting that, okay?
Okay, we're done.
Yes.
Okay, so
Thank
that
you,
is the
everybody.
last,
Have a
thank
good day.
you. That is the last case. So this concludes the public hearing for January 11th, 2022.
Okay.